Hey there, English hero. Welcome to another episode of the Heroic English podcast. I'm Max, your host, and in this video, you are going to discover 4 completely eye-opening, game-changing insights that will profoundly shift your perspective on how you learn and practice your English. I promise you this, within just a few months or even weeks, you'll be able to notice a huge improvement in your English fluency if you truly embrace these insights. That is, if you really think about and, most importantly, act on them. So these 4 things I'm about to tell you are going to help you take an honest look at yourself as an English learner right now in the present. But most importantly, it'll also empower you to envision an amazing future for yourself as an English speaker. Of course, everything I tell you here, I relate to your English learning journey, but you can totally apply these 4 truth nuggets, let's call them that, truth nuggets. You can apply that to other areas of your life where you're looking to create growth as well. Are you ready for the first one? Listen up. If you want to know how much progress you'll make in your English over a certain period of time, let's say a year, don't be so concerned about what your current level is, and instead, be more concerned about the trajectory you're on. So focus less on where you're at now and focus more on the direction you're headed. A lot of times we get hung up on our current level, and maybe we get frustrated because we're not improving a lot. But the reality is that, you shouldn't do that. Instead, focus on the direction you're on. I believe that when you embrace this mindset, you instantly shift into a growth-oriented perspective. It doesn't matter if your English today is not as good as you want it to be. What matters is that today you're doing the actions that will produce the results tomorrow. We'll continue exploring that first insight as well as the other 3. Now, I want to tell you that at Heroic English, we believe in the power of storytelling, thoughtful discussions, sharing from our experiences, and that's why I'm sharing these 4 truth nuggets in the context of a recent conversation I had with my group of international Heroic English friends or members of this amazing community. So a few weeks ago, we met to talk about the effect of habits in our English learning and fluency development. So we discussed some of the things and the biggest ideas that we learned from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. So with that said, subscribe and like if you're watching this on YouTube. Hit follow if you are listening to this as a podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any of the other podcast platforms. And of course, don't forget to rate the podcast with 5 stars. That helps a lot. Now, get ready to dive deep into these 4 transformative insights that will change how you approach your English learning forever. Let's do this. Welcome to Heroic English. Today's conversation is on habits. So I'm excited to kick things off with a question. What's the best habit you currently have that helps you boost your English fluency? Who is the brave soul who is going to volunteer first to answer that very fun question? So again, what is the best habit you currently have that helps you boost your English fluency? So here in our conversation, we're just getting warmed up and we are exploring this question that goes back to the first truth nugget I gave you earlier. If you want to know where you'll end up in terms of your English fluency level in an X amount of time from now, don't give a bleep about what your current level is. Be more concerned about the trajectory you're on. Now, how do you get a sense of this trajectory you're on? What do we need to do to make this trajectory look like this instead of this? Well, you do that precisely by looking at the things you do every day, your habits, your processes, your consistent actions. And truthfully, it's not really about knowing what your level of English will be like in a year from now, for example. This mindset is really about thinking less about your goals and more about your processes, the system that will create the results you want. James Clear puts this beautifully with a quote. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So think about this question and feel free to leave a comment in the video on YouTube. What is the best habit you currently have that helps you boost your English fluency? If you feel like you're not doing enough to support an upward trajectory and you're feeling like you're going like on a flat, sideways trajectory, take this as an opportunity to, come up with a few habits, with a few ideas for what you could be doing that will help you get on the right direction. If you need ideas, here are some of the habits members of the Heroic English community do regularly.
The habit that I try to do it's joining a lot of meetings to practice my English, because joining a lot of meetings, you have someone to speak with, to exchange your ideas. So in that case, you will be able to level up your English fast.
That is a fantastic habit and one that really connects you with not just learning English, but also living it, and you're using it every day. And that's definitely going to help you, and it probably is helping you boost your ability. Beautiful. We have Vera and Giorgio. Vera?
Recently, I started to listen an audiobook. It's The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. And there is an option. I can listen it in Russian. Unfortunately, there is no translation to Ukrainian, or I can listen it originally in English. So I'm doing both. One time I'm listening Russian, so I can understand what they are talking about, and later I am listening from YouTube original version.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Excellent. Thank you for sharing, Vera. Giorgio?
So regarding your question, what I do every day, I try to listen to TED Talks, small TED Talks, in order to boost my listening skills, because I'm not able to understand when I watch an American film, for example. I need always subtitles. Then every day, in order to boost my vocabulary, for half an hour, I read a book in English. I've just finished Stardust by Neil Gaiman. I am a part of a book club, and once a month we meet and discuss about the book.
I can tell you like books just by looking at your background, and that is an amazing habit to have. These are big habits for the development of your English fluency. But let's now shift gears a little bit and let's talk about other habits that are, smaller, tiny habits, but they have the potential to compound to big results in a few years from now. Let's explore that. So, what's a small improvement you have made recently that may seem insignificant, but has the potential to create remarkable results over time? Like it's a tiny new thing that you've been doing recently that if you just consider like from now to next week, maybe that thing is not gonna really make a huge impact in your life. But if you just look like 5 years down the road, maybe that small thing is gonna definitely compound and amount to something big. For example, in my case, like I eat a lot of bread, and maybe just eating half the amount of bread that I consume every day, maybe next week it's not gonna have an impact in my weight or anything. Probably it will, but if it just look like a year from now, well, probably like I'm gonna lose some kilos. So that's just an example way to illustrate the idea. That's one question, but also continue discussing the first questions. There are two questions. The one that we already considered here, but didn't get to hear all of you, of course, just Ahmed and Giorgio and Vera. Continue with that one and then move on to the next one, okay? So Stefano, since we've already heard a friend Giorgio here talk about the habit, the best habit that you have, Giorgio, currently that helps you with your English, what's that habit for you, Stefano?
The best habit I currently have that's helped me boosting my English is come into contact in English for at least an hour a day with listening a podcast or video on YouTube. I ever started studying English recently for my work, and I need practice every day.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, and that practice a lot of times is helped and supported by the habits that you form. So if you're making it a point to practice English every day, then that becomes a habit that empowers you to continuing developing that fluency in English. So the other question, guys, is like just shifting what we're thinking here. This is a habit. It's one of the greater ones that we have for our English. How about like other habits that are smaller? Think about something that you've made recently, like a slight change that in a couple of months, years, whatever that is, you think is going to compound to something big and significant. You know what I mean? What's a small change, new habit you've implemented recently?
Join in meeting. For me, speaking is a problem. I feel uncomfortable when I have a conversation. In my work, sometimes I have to do presentation in English, and I feel comfortable because I prepare my speech, etc. But I have to talk as now. My mind become confusing. Is very difficult.
Yep. What do you think, Giorgio, about the challenges Stefan is going through and how he deals with them?
I think that Stefan is a perfectionist. It's a person that likes a lot to have a lot of information before taking an action.
You could say that like preparing before a meeting or an event or some duty that you have to fulfill. I actually like that because that's a moment where you actually have to think deliberately about what you're going to say, like, and iron out any possible future mistakes. And in the process of doing that, I think that you learn a lot. And next time you have to prepare, all the things that you actually prepared for before are going to be there, like a knowledge gain that are going to support you in the next opportunity that you're going to have to speak in English, to present something, you know, things like that.
He feels comfortable when he prepares himself because he likes not to make mistakes.
So
My diagnosis, it's correct, my diagnosis, Stefano, of you.
Yes.
Do you see yourself, Giorgio, in that situation as well? How's like your preparation, if it exists at all, when you have to, you know, talk about something and you have the chance to prepare? Do you ever prepare? I know that it's much better to prepare yourself before, but I'm not able to see myself as Stefano sees him. For me, I have no problems to speak public, to invent a discussion, to say my idea. But this is, I think it's another topic. It's about behavioral styles. Both behavioral styles are pros and cons. For Stefano, pros he's always prepared. And he makes less mistakes. For a person like me, though I know with my brain, my logic, that to prepare myself, it's much better, I'm also able not to prepare myself. I make a lot of mistakes. So I know the value of the small habits can determine a big change in the long term. I don't remember where I read it, but an example was that if you want to improve your English, if every day you improve 1%, in a year you have improved 37 times more than the first day of the year. Totally agree with that, Giorgio. Excellent. If you improve 1% every day for a year, at the end of that year, you are going to be 37 times better than you were in the beginning. How does the math work out for that? I'll tell you how, and I actually did my research on this particular point. Imagine that yesterday you had $1 and today you have 1% more on top of that $1. That is $1.01. So far, so good, right? Easy math. Now, here's the thing. Tomorrow, your 1% improvement will take effect on top of today's $1.01. Meaning, you won't have $1.02. You'll have a tiny bit more than that if you really look into the math of how, that works. Anyway, in 2 weeks, your savings won't add up to a linear $1.14, right? 1 cent for each of the 14 days in 2 weeks. So you won't have $1.14. You will have, do you want to know how much you'll have? about $1.15. That is 1 cent extra, as opposed to that was like a linear 1 cent per day. However, like, we're just looking at a 2-week period here with these tiny little compound interests. But what if we zoom out a little bit and look at this from the perspective of like 1 year? You get $37, and going back to what George just said, if you focus on getting better 1% every day, by the end of the year, you'll be 37 times better than you were at the beginning of that year. Now, in a 5-year window, we are talking about more than $1 million, right? We started with a $1 investment. In 5 years, if we compound that by 1% every day, in 5 years, we'll have more than $1 million. And ain't that incredible? What's the lesson here? Don't underestimate the power of consistent daily habits, daily actions, and daily practices, because they do add up to big things. That was very insightful, Giorgio, too, like about the 1% thing that comes from James Clear. And I love that, because it's all about those tiny little gains that with time, they compound. And Stefan, I believe you're being in a fintech environment and the financial world, like compound interest. That's a concept that I think applies in language learning as well. Great discussion, guys. And need to close the chat here and go back to the main room. Love chatting with you guys.
Okay.
Now, that was all about the first big insight. Focus less on your current level and more on your daily habits, on your daily actions that support a trajectory that looks like this. It goes upward. Now, let's move on to our second transformative insight, truth nugget, which is the following. The more you repeat a behavior, the more you reinforce the identity associated with that behavior. Now, what does that mean? Well, if you want to be a C2 level English speaker, do the things that a C2 level English speaker does every day. Do the things that a highly proficient speaker considers to be the normal things to do, the standard. Speakers of English that have a C2 level live their English a little bit more intensely. An example of this is that we no longer watch TV in our native language, and we go to the extremes a bit more often. For me personally, there's rarely a day between Monday and Saturday that I don't speak English. I have a daily stand-up meeting every day at work, and that is 100% in English, and it's like 40 minutes per day of English speaking happening in my day-to-day life. Then I have an English speaking conversation meetup on Wednesday at Heroic English, and of course the Saturday meetups at Heroic English as well. And that means that adding it all up, I actively engage in English conversation between 5 to 8 hours per week, all while staying in my home country, Argentina. So you are what you do every day, and that's the reality of it. If you want to be an amateur, do what amateurs do. If you want to be a pro, do what pros do. Now, in the beginning, you'll be an amateur doing the things that pros do, but with time, and I promise you, you'll get there. With time, you'll become a pro as well. It's like that saying, fake it till you make it. Now, let's watch the next portion of this Heroic English conversation as we bring together Insight 1 and Insight 2 that we've discussed so far. So, moving on to the next thing, let me just share it here. It's all about like brainstorming and like all the little daily actions that we do every day, daily actions. And this idea that we basically are what we do, right? The whole collection of our little daily actions is what ultimately, represent who we are, like what our identity is. And there is something here in the guide, and let me share that and really quickly read that for you. You should be more concerned with your current trajectory than your current results. If you want to predict where you'll end up in life, all you have to do is follow the curve of tiny gains or tiny losses and see how your daily choices will compound 10 or 20 years down the line. daily choices. Want to highlight that because that's the focus of our question. So let's brainstorm both negative and positive daily choices that currently shape your life. Think about the direction these choices are leading you, whether in terms of, English, just, feel free to relate it to your English development or just life in general, like your overall life. Think about your Monday to Friday or Monday to Monday life and all the things that you do, the good and the bad, and how those things you predict are, taking you in life. You know what I mean? It's a deeply reflective question and might be a bit personal. Some of the things that maybe feel free to not share, like whatever you don't feel comfortable sharing. So yeah, brainstorm, like come up with as many daily choices. And the purpose of this is that you actually become aware of these things. And many times we just go through life without really thinking much about what we do every day. So the idea is that as you become more aware and you ask this critical question to yourself, like where are these bad and good things taking me down the road 10 years from now? Because if I continue drinking Coca-Cola as much as I do every day, I know that in 10 years, my teeth are going to be worse. My health is going to be worse. My weight is going to be bigger and stuff like that. So that's the point, right? And think about your English or your life in general, whatever that is. Guys, I'll see you in a little bit. Have fun. Enjoy. If you have any questions, let me know. What's Ahmed, what's a negative, let's say, daily choice that you have in your life?
For me, the negative thing is that when I haven't the ability to join any meeting because sometimes I didn't have enough time. I tried all the time to say to myself that I don't have enough time, but actually I can find the time. But the negative things that I lose my time with the things that not actually wouldn't help.
Yeah, totally. We all do that. And actually, well, my negative daily choice is the first thing that I see every morning is my phone, my screen, which is not great. And I think a lot of people are guilty of this. It's something that we all do. And just trying to not do that. And when I have not done it and I have only checked my phone maybe 3 hours after I woke up and I already got productive, it felt better. And I already did some productive things by that time.
If you can focus what is very important and what you should do and not to waste your time. Yeah. Okay, so for me, this habit is also that when I just scrolling the phone and sometimes, nothing important is there. But maybe I will say about different habit I had, that habit. During my work, very often I didn't want to organize the calls via Skype with counterparts because I was afraid if they will understand me. So very often I decided to just write mails. Now I promised myself to call and just describe. Improving my confidence in speaking, there is the way to make more achievements in my life in speaking English.
Yeah, and partaking in the challenges we do in Heroic English, that's a great initiative too. That's a great way to activate that speaking. Yeah, like personally, like you would say, okay, Max, your English is already good enough, but I have already noticed a big improvement from the first Heroic English challenge we did. That is 12 weeks ago. To now, to the video that I just recorded last night. I just feel like it's easier for me to get what's the word I want to use, because it's not fluent, maybe like fluency, yeah, but it's a little bit more to get loose. You know what I mean?
When you're loose, be more natural.
Yeah, loose, natural. Like, I don't want to say fluency because that's already kind of like a concept that general to your English.
To be more comfortable when you're speaking.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's true. I noticed my English is more loose 1 hour after I started speaking. Like when I just start the Heroic English conversations like this one, and I've not spoken English earlier that day, it takes some time for me to get loose. And 1 hour into the meeting, if I'm speaking a lot, my English is a lot more, not more fluent, it's just more loose. And I can explain my thoughts a lot more clearly. But now I've noticed probably like one of my things that I'm doing, but one of the things that I can attribute this improvement to is the Heroic English challenges. I think like it's easier for me to get to the point where I'm loose with my English.
Fully agree. I understood it very well. When I was recording my first video, maybe you didn't notice, but I was so very nervous. I was so stressful. And during recording third video, I felt, as you said, more natural. Of course, I was prepared more. I prepared a notebook with the.
That's amazing.
But I was very surprised how many words I have learned, because when you write and then you present this speech, the way of learning is very profitable for me. Yeah, I was very surprised how many words I still remember.
Amazing work, Evelina. Ahmed, what's a positive daily choice that you have?
The consistency. I have the consistency to practice my English, but if you noticed last month, I was not an active in the last period because, as I told you, I have a trip to South Korea. But now I returned back, and I have the energy to continue to practice my English.
Yeah, and sometimes other things get in the way, and traveling and living life. So great work there, Ahmed. I want to recognize two people in this call right now because of going back to this daily choice. And I love you all, but there are two people in this call that I want to especially recognize for a daily choice that they make. That is actively participating in the Heroic English challenges, but not just with the video, but also like commenting. And that is a great daily choice. That's Dennis and Evelina. Evelina, you joined us very recently, and I'm amazed by your active participation. So like commenting on people's videos every week, that's something that I always make it a point to do it every day. Continuing nurturing this community that we have, that the vision is to make it a supportive environment for people's English to thrive in. And it comes down to daily little actions that add something, like provide value. Anyway, just wanted to say that as we move on to our next activity.
Thank you for this nice words, but I need to thank you for creating this group. I'm really satisfied that I found this group. But anyway, I would like to say thank you.
So all of you guys are amazing, and really appreciate it. Even the few of you who are joining for the first time, hopefully I'll see you join more often too. All right, so now the third big insight for you is understanding that there is a delay or gap between an effort and a result. Imagine your English learning journey is like planting seeds in a garden. When you start, you put in a lot of effort, like, that is watering the seeds and tending the soil and everything that goes into that. At first, you might not see much growth going on, and that's okay. Just like when you're learning English, the same thing. You're doing tons of things and you're not really noticing the improvement. And here's the thing, when it feels like you're not making progress as quickly as you'd like, remember that you're still on the path to growth. Keep nurturing those skills even when you don't see immediate results, because eventually you'll reach a point where your efforts pay off and your fluency flourishes. So remember, the seed that you planted earlier, it takes time for it to really get nurtured and to become a sprout and to develop flowers and to blossom and to flourish. Everything that is in life that is worth pursuing and making an effort for, it takes time for that to develop. It's not like an overnight thing that you at the press of a button, all of a sudden you're fluent in another language. It takes time. Let's now talk about the plateau of latent potential. I'm going to read a passage from James Clear's Atomic Habits. It goes, if you find yourself struggling to build a good habit or break a bad one, it is not because you have lost your ability to improve. It is often because you have not yet crossed the plateau of latent potential. Complaining about not achieving success despite working hard is like complaining about an ice cube not melting when you heated it from -3 degrees Celsius to -1 degrees Celsius. Your work was not wasted It's just being stored. All the action happens at 0 degrees Celsius. When you finally break through the plateau of latent potential, people will call it an overnight success. Mastery requires patience. That gap between our efforts and results, James calls it the plateau of latent potential and tells us it's a characteristic of any compounding process. The most powerful outcomes are delayed. People want to go from plant to harvest without cultivating. So this concept, the plateau of latent potential, and it's the hallmark of any compounding process, like the characteristic aspect of anything really that you want to do that has like a lot of value. There's this silent period, like in a lot of English learners, that when they first start learning English, until they actually are able to speak it, there's this time there, that this delay. It's not like you can speak it right away. There's this delay. Or if I want to, lose some weight, I'm going to start watching my food, what I'm eating, my nutrition. It's not like I'm going to lose weight like right away. There's this delay. And that is the plateau of latent potential. There's actually another piece of text. Let me put it here and read it. So little things add up to big things. Got it. The problem is that it takes time for those little things to add up to those big things. Unfortunately, too often we want our lives to change X days after starting a new diet or fitness program. When the results don't immediately show up, we stop doing the little things that would have led to the success we're after. The question is, have you ever experienced this delay? Right? Like action, results, there's a gap there. Can you share a little bit about that? The question I'm reading here, can you share a specific situation where you had to wait for a long time before seeing significant results? So that's a question. And talk all about this delay between action and result. And can you think of situations in your life when you've experienced that delay, when you were patient and actually were consistent until you saw the result, or when you maybe gave up? You may have given up right before seeing the result and you never actually got to see it. All right, guys, I'll see you in a little bit back here, and have fun there. So how about this delay, guys, between action and result?
When you start to, for example, running or doing CrossFit workouts, etc., at the beginning, there is very, very hard to start. There is the rule that if you want to have strong habit, you need to repeat in time 40 times.
Yeah, making it a habit. Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Stefano, Larissa?
I agree. I think that it's important to know the time in a processes and the delay. In this case, the process of learning. I remember when I started studying philosophy. In the start, I don't understand some phrases, but I try, and at certain point, some insight began. I started comprehension philosophy.
I like what you say there at the end, the process. And this, when you are aware of this delay between result and action, actually that were action and result, sometimes we tend to focus too much on the goal and not so much on the process that you are currently engaging with that will get you to that goal. Like I never actually, like in my English learning process development journey, never really set goals. Just had a vision of who I wanted to become with my English, and just focused on what I was doing every day, every week, every month, and never really set goals personally, but definitely focused on the process. And and was patient too. Never really got impatient, like wanting to get the results I was after. I know that if I continue doing the things that I was doing, eventually I was gonna get to those results. Yeah, love to hear you, Larissa, on like this idea of the delay between action and result. How has that been in your life?
I would like to share my experience about learning English. I started to learn English when I was a child, but I had bad experience when I was at school, because during my English lessons at school, my teacher spoken more my native language and less English. When I started to study at the university, it was a big problem for me to understand my teacher. After first lesson, I was crying because I didn't know how I should continue studying, because my profession was philology of English language. And I can say that it was really hard for years when I was at university. My main point was to be prepared for my lessons. And also I had another problem. It was so hard for me to speak because I wasn't so confident. I was very afraid to make a mistake when I speak. When I graduated the university, I want to show myself that I can do it. I can speak English fluently. If I want it, I will do it. And I had support from my parents, from my family. Really, they supported me a lot. If we try it every day, it starts like a habit, and we will find time for it.
Excellent.
We should don't stop to do it. We should continue.
Yeah, consistency. I love to hear also like the intentionality in your actions there. Like if I want to do this, or if I know that I'm going to become fluent, I'll do it.
And now I can say that I'm very glad to be in this community, and I'm very thankful for Max for this opportunity to be present during these lessons, because I speak more fluently, more confident, and I do less mistakes. I'm very happy to come back to be with you. Thanks very much for you.
I'm glad to be part of, and myself and the whole Heroic English community be part of your process too. I want to ask you real quick, I don't have a lot of time left. Like, Evelina, what's a sport that you do? You mentioned running, right? Is that a sport that you're doing right now, right? And this is going to lead to my explanation, something I want to do. I just wanted to set it up. Evelina, you do running. Do you do any other sport?
If I do, no, it's running and doing CrossFit.
How about you, Stefana? What's a sport that you do or have done in the past?
Running and trekking is a sport.
Love it. Well, I've done a few. I've actually done quite a few, to be honest. And I've noticed that with some sport, there's been a delay between my initial action starting the sport, and actually me starting to get results and enjoying it. But when it comes to basketball, that's a sport that I used to be very passionate about. There was a delay between the time when I started learning it and the results of actually being able to play it and be confident with my skills. There was a delay because there is this learning curve of learning the rules. There are certain things that you're not allowed to do in basketball. Whereas in football, it's easier to grasp the rules, especially if you've grown up playing it. Another sport that I've done is kickboxing. That's another one that I noticed a delay between me starting doing it for the first time and really being able to get in the flow of doing it and having fun with it, and not be like in a constant mindset of, okay, overthinking what I'm doing, how I'm throwing punches and kicks. There was a delay. And rugby, that's another one. That's one that I bailed on it before actually understanding the results I was going to get, because I didn't understand it. I was doing it and I was learning, but I kind of like quit before getting to the results stage of the process, So rugby, that's one that I never really could get my head around or get better at. So I just wanted to, share my sporting life and how it applies to that. Great to hear you all, three of you. Great stories, and let's go back. All right, English heroes. Hope that was fun for you as much as it was for me and my breakout room. Now let's explore truth nugget number 4, our fourth big insight. This, by the way, is my favorite one out of the 4. So let's explore it right now. Let's do it. One of the most effective things that you can do to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. Your culture sets your expectation for what is normal. Surround yourself with people who have the habits you want to have, and you'll rise together. One of the parts of the vision for Heroic English is making it a place where you're going to find peers, and you're going to have a mentor or two, people that are a little bit ahead in the journey than you are. You're going to learn from those people. They're going to be people that are in the same level, and they're going to also like empower you. and there are people that are going to be a little behind you. The idea being is that like together this whole collection of things and individuals help you continue rising and becoming better. And have you ever joined, and this is not just for English, have you ever joined a group where the culture in that group, the normal behavior in that group was the kind of behavior that you were looking to get for your own life? You know what I mean? Georgia, have you ever had an experience of joining a group like this, whether that's for English or any other thing in your life? You mentioned books before.
Yes, yes. I have been in groups that they speak English. They speak English. And the thing that it's amazing is that different cultures, in reality, when you get to know the other person, the other way of thinking, you understand that in reality, though we have differences, in reality, we are all human beings. This is the great lesson by taking part in this book club, where there are people from all over the world. There are Japanese people, Arabian people, there are from the United States, from Canada, from Africa.
Anyone else? Like, what's a time when you join a group, whether that's English, whether that's the sport that you like, or any other area of your life? Vera?
I am participating in different groups where we are learning and practicing Turkish.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's not just about language. This is also about habits, culture.
Excellent. Really random, like I'm gonna point out maybe Sunet. Think of any sport, no matter which. Let's just mention a sport, you know? What's any sport that you can mention right now? Because I wanna set up something here that I wanna say.
Cricket.
Love that. Now, tell me, what's a country that does particularly well at that sport, cricket?
India.
Of course, India. Yeah, India is Argentina. We don't
There is no doubt.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, why is India a powerhouse in cricket? Why is India like particularly good in cricket? And the reason why that's the case, I think, in my opinion, is because there is a culture there of supporting that sport. There's like an environment that helps people like start playing it and becoming better at it. There is like an infrastructure. And so the same thing with football in Argentina, running in the 100-meter dash in Jamaica. Now, English may not be something that there is a supportive environment around you in India, in Guatemala, in Poland, whatever countries you guys are from, in Argentina. But you can definitely join something online, like seek that supportive environment yourself. And thanks to the internet, that's possible nowadays. And well, what I want to do with Heroic English is actually provide that. And I'm happy to hear you guys' thoughts about being so happy about being in Heroic English. Anyway, what I'm leading with this is that the importance of the supportive environment. If you're learning English alone at home, without like interacting with anyone, without getting any help from other human beings that are in the same pursuit that you are, it's not going to be great. And I've met a lot of learners that they are part of a community, and because of that, their English has improved a lot. And I've met a lot of learners that they live in the United States, but their English have not developed because they don't have the supportive environment in the United States. They do have the constant environment and immersion in the language 100% of the time, but they're missing that supportive element. People that support them, that help them, peers and mentors. They just see a lot of American people that they don't really care about like your development in the language. Not to say they're not nice, you know, but it's not the same as being part of a community of people that are in the same pursuit as you are.
Speaking about language, when I moved to Italy, the first thing that I understood it was this, Max, that I have to isolate myself from the Greek community.
Oh, yes.
And stay only with Italians. And this helped me a lot because after 6 months, I was able to speak Italian language and to do also an exam in Italian language. My first exam was hygiene in Italian language after 6 months. So this is really important to have people that helps you and make you think that the normal thing is to speak Italian. This was for me, not Greek, because in that period in Italy there was a big Greek community. They asked me how you were able to do this exam. Because for 6 months I disappeared from the Greek community. So to have support from other peoples and understand that this is the normality, it's very, very, very important. Yeah, I have this experience. After 6 months, I was able to speak very well Italian language.
All right, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Heroic English Podcast, where we discussed the 4 big insights, the 4 truth nuggets that you need to embrace and act on if you want to bridge or close the gap between where you are now and where you want to be or can be. Or said in other words, who you are now and who you can be in the future. So let's recap what those 4 insights are. Number 1 is don't be so concerned about what your current level is. Be more concerned about the trajectory you're on. Remember James Clear's quote, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. That was insight number 1. Now insight number 2, the more you repeat a behavior, the more you reinforce the identity associated with that behavior. If you want to be a highly proficient, highly fluent English speaker, start acting like one. Remember, fake it until you make it. Number 3 is understand that between an effort and a result, there's a delay, a gap. What you need to do here is just continue doing what you're doing, continue building up on your previous actions and efforts, continue being consistent, and results will come eventually. They always do. So be relentlessly consistent and remain patient. Patience is key. Now, the last one, my favorite one, this is the easiest and most effective way to follow the previous 3 steps, and that is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. Surround yourself with people that have the habits you want to have yourself. That is exactly what Heroic English is, so join us on Facebook and continue watching and listening to our podcasts. Now, if you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and like if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're listening to this on platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Deezer, or wherever you're listening, don't forget to do 2 things. First of all, follow us on that platform you are listening this from, and also give us a 5-star rating on that platform. Your support means a lot. All right, English hero, keep learning, keep growing, keep living your English, and until next time.